Do you wish you could get virtual attendees to turn their cameras on? Is engagement the number one issue on your virtual meetings? Do you want your meeting to be the most engaging virtual meeting? Well, welcome to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. In this podcast, we'll talk to the top people around the world in virtual meetings and give you, the listener, the best ideas to host engaging virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Now, let's welcome your host, the author of the #1 Amazon hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings, John Chen. All right, this is John Chen, author of Engaging Virtual Meetings, and you're getting ready for another engaging virtual podcast. I am tuning in live from Asilomar today. Asilomar is a beautiful California state retreat run by the California State, and it's a retreat center here on the coast of Monterey, California. Let me just tell you, this is beautiful. I want to give a shout out to our good friend, Rick Altman, who just ran his live presentation summit here with 90 of the top PowerPoint and presentation masters in the world. I got to tell you that I learned a lot while I was here. Beautiful location, sat here on the right on the waterfront. And again, if you get a chance to, his program will be in 2 weeks from now. I believe it's November 6th, and that November 6th will be his virtual version of that, so you can actually catch all of that same education here virtually. Okay, let's see now. My podcast. I do have one other thing that I'd really like to show today, but I'm in another location, so it takes me just an extra moment to find things here today. All right. Well, anyways, I wanted to also share that my conference is coming up. The Engaging Conference is finally here. It's going to start on Monday, October 23rd through the 25th. The secrets of engaging conferences, summits, and masterclasses. You can register still at engagingvirtualmeetings.com. Again, engagingvirtualmeetings.com/CON for conference. Again, if you are here watching us on live stream, do us a favor, hit the subscribe, chat. Feel free to chat us any questions, hit the like, and we look forward to you catching these live as you get them. Now, today, I've got a great guest. She's got a CBAP. She's got a PMP. She's an international best-selling author and senior IT business analyst consultant working with over 50 organizations, including Red Cross, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Hewlett-Packard, and, of course, the Fed. So let's welcome to the stage our one and only Pamela Anderson. Hey, Pamela, how are you doing today?
I'm good, John.
I caught it now. I just said Anderson. I know. I'm sure you've never had this before. But Pamela also had another rename. She was Paterson just a second ago, but now she's Pamela Paterson. Thank you so much.
That's right. Zoom named me Paterson, and now I'm Paterson. Actually, it happens more often than you would think, and it's very funny because it's been happening for over 20 years. So there's the power of media and Hollywood for you.
Well, I'm sure you're always having a wrestle with that. So thank you so much for joining us. You're joining us, of course, from Canada. Pamela, for my friends who don't know you, do take a moment and tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, I'm an IT consultant in business analysis and project management, and I taught project management for over 10 years. I wrote 10 books. 2 of them are international bestsellers. And I'm also an international speaker, and I've spoken at a lot of places in the world, in person and virtually, and certainly many, many more after the pandemic, which is in line with virtual presentations and virtual meetings and the topic of today. The extended version, if I'll just go into the extended version for a moment, okay, is that I actually originally started off wanting to be a journalist. And so I took journalism, and for a variety of reasons, mostly financial, if you know the starting salary of a reporter, I ended up going into communications and public relations, and I stayed there for about 5 years. And then I saw this great big transport truck coming my way, and it was called IT. So I got on the back of that IT transport truck and I came into IT. I started out as a technical writer because it was quite a close parallel to what I was doing, writing. And then I went into business analysis and eventually project management and started my own company in consulting.
Wow, what a journey that you had. Let me check this piece too. What did you do in the last 3 years as a speaker? I'm just curious how the changes affected you as a speaker.
Sure. Well, learning a lot more about virtual meetings, that's for sure. And, when you're only seen by your audience from kind of the shoulders up, how are you going to compensate for the strengths of when you're in person, of moving around on the stage, of having that power, of having that good connection with the audience? And it's been a bit of a learning journey as well, and certainly a good one, because I've taken these kinds of tips and shared them with other people.
Hmm. And what were some of your awards, if you don't mind me asking, that you earned as a speaker?
Mostly in Toastmasters. I've been a
Oh,
Toastmaster for over 20 years.
yeah.
I recommend it to everybody. And so I've even competed at different levels around Toastmasters. And it's a really, really terrific way to get a very positive environment. Nobody's going to be throwing tomatoes at you. Everybody claps. Even if you say your name, it's your first meeting, you say your name, everybody's clapping for you. And it's really, really a great way to get that camaraderie around becoming a professional speaker.
Okay, so how long have you been a member of Toastmasters?
Over 20 years.
Oh, yeah. So you definitely, and you probably attended some of the conferences, maybe you competed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's a whole new level when you get into the competition level, the conference level, because you're really competing with professional speakers that command audiences of 10,000 people. So it's a really terrific experience, and what you pick up. I mean, you're listening to the content. Of course, it's very good speeches, but
Yeah.
you're also kind of taking some mental notes about the techniques that they use. And it's all techniques as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, it's all techniques. Okay. What are some of your favorite techniques to use, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, to give away some secrets here, a lot is preparation. So if you know your audience, if you know, are they junior at this topic? Are they seniors at this topic? Then you can really shape that content and it's directly towards them. And I think I get that from my communications background in PR, where you really do spend a lot of time doing audience analysis, figuring out what their characteristics are, what they're interested in, what they know, what they don't know,
Mhm.
maybe some of their pain points. And when you can speak to that and craft your content around those points, then you're really developing a rapport. And in case of a virtual meeting, you're developing a rapport with people you haven't met and you can't see, which is a really extraordinary thing.
So, what I think I heard you say is that customization is really a key part, that preparation and customization. I say the same in event design is that, a lot of times the events are won and lost long before they ever started in that design. And so that you feel like that preparation, that customization is what's key to keep it relevant for the people that are in that audience. Does that sound about right?
Absolutely. And I love that word, John, customization, because that's what it's all about. I do
Mm,
a lot of volunteering, helping other people get going in their career and building their business, all
mhm.
volunteer work. It's something I really enjoy doing. And one person I was working with wanted to talk and promote her business around diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
And she wasn't sure how to pitch it to propose, CEOs or potential audiences and potential
Yeah.
places where they'd bring her in. And I asked her, how does your pitch differ when you're talking to a CEO versus somebody who's a line worker, a program manager in that area? And she said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, think about, what is the CEO interested in? What are his or her challenges? And
Right.
that message is going to be different than the one that you're giving the person who has direct contact with people in this area. And it's all about learning more about your audience and about what they need, and then giving it to them.
Right. Great tips. What's one of your top in-person speaking experiences over your course of speaking?
Well, I'd have to say it would be two actually.
Okay.
One of them was when I was brought back into in-person speaking during the
Hmm.
pandemic. And
Oh,
so for a few years, I just didn't have any in-person experience.
right.
So this was a big deal to switch out of my computer and become a human being again and stand in front of a lot of people. And that was at Sequel Bits. That was in Wales last year.
Hmm.
And it takes a little bit. It's almost like I lost 10 years of comfortability in this realm.
Hmm.
And then the other one was just this year, actually. I was speaking at the International Institute of Business Analysis, which I do quite
Hmm.
often, but I was doing it at the global level. And so there were at least, I want to say, between 1,000 and 1,500 people, something like that, online all over the world.
Hmm.
And it was really interesting to hear their comments in the chat, to see their different perspectives, and know that I'm connecting with just so many different kinds of people in different parts of the globe.
Hmm. Genius. Well, the reason why I wanted to now see if we can contrast, and I'm really curious, what did you do on your virtual? So, it's great. I had the same problem too, which is trying to get back to that in person. We almost forgot all these things. You have to like repeoplize yourself. But I'm just curious, what has to happen for you for a virtual meeting to be engaging, and what are some of the techniques or tactics that you use as a virtual speaker?
So this is a great question, John, because I think that it's very hard to find this information unless people are following you, and I hope they are, and I hope they're seeing your videos and listening to and reading your books, because there's a lot there. But I kind of think it as a two-part answer. One part is about good presentations in general, whether you're in person or not, or virtual. The other is the virtual element for sure. And in both cases, the presenter needs to be prepared.
Yeah.
So it's about that customization. So even before you step into that room with people, you know who they are, you know what their needs are, you know what's going to resonate with them, you know what's going to be a good joke and a bad joke. And it's very interesting. I mean, humor is very localized, let me say. And so if you're a global speaker and you can have a localized sense of humor, put forward a joke, then you're on your way to resonating with them. And so it's very important to have the presenter who's prepared. And if it's a business meeting, you have an agenda, you have names beside the agenda, maybe you have the time spent that we're going to on each of those topics,
Mhm.
and you have it approved in advance, that kind of thing, or at least communicated and distributed. It's a big deal. It's a big difference to people who learn differently. And I think that's really key as well, because we have about 65% of people who are visual learners. We
Mhm.
have about 30%, depends on where you get these statistics, who are verbal learners, and then 5% about kinesthetic. So they need movement, they need drag and drop, they need some action.
Mhm.
And so if you think in advance, so we're still in preparation, if you think in advance about what do I need to do in order to appeal to each of those learners, you're going to be ahead of the game. Because what we don't want to happen is that you've spent all of this time preparing the presentation, maybe weeks even,
Mhm.
and you've given the presentation, and then you ask people, action items, you assign action items, they have their asks, and you don't get good results because they didn't absorb the information in the first place. So
Mhm.
that's really, really important. Another thing that I look for is that the meeting is organized according to different objectives, according to who's in the room, according to what
Yeah.
the priorities are, what the low-hanging fruit is. I mean, you could have the same topic and giving it to different audiences and organize your meeting differently just because it's a different audience and we have different people in the room. So, for example, if you have executive stakeholders in the room, then I try to organize my meetings so that they can get what they need, they can make the decision, and then they can get out. And they're going to respect that when they see that, and they're going to resonate with you when they see that you're organizing according to how busy they are. There's other ways to organize meetings, of course. I mean, maybe it's getting the easy topics out of the way first and then moving into the contentious. Maybe it's starting with the knowns and then moving into the unknowns. Maybe it's looking at the most critical pieces, because if you think you might run out of time because maybe your stakeholders are really engaged, well, then maybe we have to get those critical pieces out of the way, and then the less important ones, we don't mind as much that we don't get to them. So the presenter is really, really well organized, knows their audience, knows their goals, and organizes their meeting according to how they need. And I think I have a couple more points around this. And, a lot of people think that you can just kind of be who you are. You can be the same person, cookie cutter, and go into every meeting just as that person. And I kind of say, you know what, I think the presenter needs to show the right personality for that meeting. If you need to be a coach for that meeting, then be that. If you need to be the project manager for that meeting, then be that. We all have different slivers of our personality that we really are different people. If we are having a coffee with a friend, or we are with our grandmother, we really are different people. So I think presenters need to spend some time thinking about what is the right personality for that meeting. And for me, I always try to inject a little bit of humor, even in a small way. So I'll give you an example of this. I was actually just in a meeting yesterday, and we were talking about security and permissions and new system. So this is a pretty serious topic, right? But I injected a little bit of humor just to wake people up a little bit. And I said, we really need to figure out this security and plan it the right way, because otherwise we're going to have a big mess, like a spaghetti dinner. And, it got people laughing. It got people engaged. It's just a small little hint of humor. So it's good for rapport. It's good for being personable. People open up if they feel that person is more personable, and they can develop that connection with them. So that's another big thing to me about having the right personality for that meeting.
Yeah, I think it's key that when you have the personality that, of course, is still authentic to you. It could be a part or a sliver of you, but having that, what I'm really interested in here too, Pamela, right? You talked a lot on the prep and the planning, and I think that's key for lots of talks. And for instance, some of the best moments of my last 3 years came out of improvisation or having to deal with the moment. Here, I'll give you an example, and I'll see if you have an example too. In one of our meetings, we were all collected. It was a hybrid meeting, so all the virtual were online, and I was the virtual MC. And we were supposed to go into this next part of this meeting. It's called 5 Minutes or Fewer, where people that are in person sign up, and the attendees can now go present something for 5 minutes. The problem is that nobody signed up, so they canceled this part, and they didn't tell us on virtual. So we were all waiting there. And it was like, oh, we need to jump to this next session. And the other person goes, oh, it looks like it got canceled. So I confirmed it was canceled. And then all of a sudden, what happened is that somebody said, hey, wait a minute. I actually planned one of those 5 minutes, was supposed to present it virtually. Would you like to hear it? And then what happened, Pamela, was like the best virtual for the best 60 minutes of virtual in the last 3 years, is because people started going and they started presenting, other people going, oh, I have something else to share. And so it actually gained a momentum of its own. And the whole key here is that was actually something that was not planned, not on the agenda, just happened. And everyone who was participating in it said it was one of the top things that they've done in the last 3 years online.
I love that, John. Spontaneity, and people crave connection. And what better way to create connection than with spontaneity? I love that example. It's just one of these spontaneous things, and one thing led to another, and one word led to another, and people were able to pick up on it and run with it. I love that.
Yeah. Do you have any moments like that too, where maybe your plan went awry, but something better happened?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, because presenters plan for things like this as well. So at the end of my sessions, I plan my demos, and it's really just based on how the whole meeting went. So if I have a lot of engagement, which I encourage, some of my some of my topics that I found, I personally didn't find that exciting.
Mhm.
But when I engaged the people in the audience and they ran with it, I mean, they really did.
Mhm.
And then it was one of the best meetings ever. And when it first happened, I was like scratching my head saying, why, how could this be like one of my best meetings ever? But it was. And then I circled back in my head, and it was just stakeholder engagement and how people were able to participate and have their voice heard. So I think it's terrific, and a good presenter will prepare for that and have kind of plan A and plan B. My plan B is shortening the demo at the end of the session, so that and hopefully I'm always doing that because I love the engagement.
Yeah, talk to me about engagement. What are some great examples of engagement, like either in this meeting or in other meetings? I wasn't there, so you'll have to help me. How what was happening and how what did their engagement look like?
So I gave a presentation at an Agile conference in Detroit in June of this year.
Mhm.
And it was one of the few in-person sessions that I give. And I started the session, I don't know, 120 people, something like that. And people sitting on the floor, there just wasn't enough chairs. And I started the session with some very simple opener questions
Mhm.
to let them know that this is a meeting where we can engage. Very simple ones, like where are you all from? And one
Mhm.
person was from Texas. And so I engaged with her a little bit. Texas, you came all the way from Texas for this conference? Really? Wow, this must be a great conference. And just simple questions like that. And then I was able to engage them all throughout as well, because you really do. It's almost like I don't want to say a teacher, but kind of. You're kind
Mhm.
of managing your classroom. You're setting the tone. And it's a good feeling when you know that you're succeeding at that and people are engaged.
And do you find that engagement, comes from easier topics like where you're from, and then you can engage in deeper topics like what is Agile doing in your organization, or what do you need to change, something like that?
That's a great point, John. And I think that's true, because if you start out with a really heavy question, like what are the major issues in your organization?
Yeah,
And maybe the boss and the manager is sitting in the same room as you,
yeah, yeah.
it's like
Awkward.
awkward.
Well, nobody wants to say anything. They don't want to be that person. But every organization is always asking for the truth or real feedback. But they juxtapose these two things, and they don't go together unless you really design it correctly to get that out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that we want to know, but we don't want to know now, or we're not sure how we want to know, but we want to know.
Right, right. Well, and it takes skill. So okay, so let me ask this other part then. How do you make your people feel safe in your keynotes?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. It's a good question. And I want to bring it actually back to a meeting that I was in recently with a client.
Okay.
And the very first thing that this person said, this project manager, is he said, "This is a meeting where I want you to feel safe, and I want you to feel that you can express anything that's on your mind." And I was surprised at this for two reasons. Number one, that he said it, and it really did set the tone for the meeting and for people feeling safe.
Mhm.
And number two, that I've never heard it before in a meeting. Because maybe it
Hmm.
sounds a bit trite to say, "I want you to feel safe." But
Mhm.
it made an incredible difference to the people in the room to hear it from the project manager and then see it. The project manager was listening, wasn't cutting them off. Or it really did. It was action followed by words.
That's also the key. The person who is speaking or facilitating sets the culture of the meeting. Because if they would have said one thing and done another, everybody quickly learns that. And so that's good that this person was able to follow that through, because it's tough to say the words at the beginning, especially if somebody doesn't follow through. Now it's like extra going, why'd you even say that?
Absolutely. And I love what you said. You said culture of the meeting. I mean, that to me is profound, because I'm not sure how many people think about that. There's a culture of the meeting. There's a culture of the project. There's a
Right.
culture of the organization. There's a culture of the community. And you need to know where you fit in and how you can get mileage out of knowing about that.
I'm curious, have people been asking you about remote work? Were they asking you, Pamela, or do you have any thoughts on, remote work is a challenge. I'm just curious if you have any best practices for remote work.
Structure. And I need that advice too, because it's easy to go get that another cup of coffee after breakfast or something before I go down into the basement. Structure is really important. And what I found, though, is maybe as an IT worker, that I found myself sitting for 4 hours, 5 hours, and not getting up, and then having to deal with the fallout from that, maybe a little sore back or something, or just lethargy. And
Mhm.
so actually what I've done is I've set my watch to a timer, to a 45, 50-minute timer. And then at
Mhm.
that point, I get up and I do something. I do kettlebells. I do a treadmill. I get on my mini trampoline. I do something to get the blood going and get, because, after a period of time, I think an ophthalmologist told me that after 40 or 45 minutes, your eye just starts making mistakes anyway. So you may as well give it a break.
Yeah, yeah. People thought they were being more efficient by doing that. Although that Simon Sinek actually opened this year in February 2023. I heard him go through this whole keynote, and his whole keynote was about breaks and how, a short break is better than no break. An outdoor break is better than an indoor break, and all these other small things, and how, he's just really dropping into that mental health realm. One of the tips we give all the time too is don't schedule all your meetings back to back. If you have 30 minutes, schedule them for 25 and get a 5-minute break. And it's like doctors have used this, and doctors, like, and I guess some nurses, you have used this in infinitum, and we should be doing it too. So you do have time to actually follow up on something that happened on a meeting before you go on to your next thing. So with that, Pamela, speaking of next things, what, now that you've experienced this last 3 years, my experience too was that we were trying to get people on virtual for decades and trying to tell them they could do it. And they just said, nah, that's fine. Here's a bunch of money, John. You got to fly. But now everybody's really in a different spot. Like, they know that virtual is possible, regardless if they like it or not. But I'm curious, Pamela, what do you see from your seat for the future of virtual and hybrid?
Well, I see bigger and better and more fun, more collaboration, more features, more functionality. I mean, every time Zoom or MS Teams rolls out something new, I get excited. And I see the tools getting better and better,
Mhm.
maybe more AI reliant, integrated. I mean, I was really excited when I found out I could do transcription in Microsoft Teams. I thought, oh, this is fantastic. I love this. And maybe with AI, we're going to see more about natural language processing and parsing, and coming up with meaningful data from that conversation, and tags around that that'll be done for you by the AI tool, which will be really interesting to see how they do that. And how soon it's going to be adopted and incorporated into the common workspace, that we're all really a part of. Technology for me is just such a wonderful thing, and I just love seeing it get better and better and better. And I think, the virtual meetings and teams, and it's hard for me now to think about what the pain points are that software companies might want to focus on to resolve through tools and technology, because now we're all kind of integrated into it. And I think that apart from the tools and technology, I think that we can always just be a bit of a better presenter,
Mm.
learn these kinds of things. And as everybody gets better at it and picks up on tips from other people, and from folks like yourself, experts, then I think we're in for a good ride.
Well, I think there's one part on the tech side. Like, for instance, in this interview, Pamela, I'm going to send you a link, and it will have all of Zoom's AI cloud feature. It will give us smart chapters of this interview. We'll give you a summary. It will give you the full transcription, a chat log if we had one, and all in one place. And I think that, I just completed a white paper, and I look forward to sending it to you when it comes out. It's for MPI, or Meetings Professional International, and it's about the use of AI in events, where there's a lot of opportunity, because there's a lot of some things that happen in an event that may not necessarily be the highest value, but they have to be done. And one of the things that came out of that is that summarizing is going to be potentially one of the top areas where AI can help. Where if you missed the meeting, Pamela, but you got to catch up because you're busy, you can actually use some of these AI tools to get the gist of the meeting, and then take a 30 or 60-minute meeting and be able to hopefully get enough of it so that you're caught up on a project, in 5 to 10 minutes. So I think that's one piece. And you'll love the other side of this, Pamela, is that do you remember an author named Elizabeth Gilbert?
Yes, of course. Eat,
Yeah.
pray, love.
There you go. So she actually gave what I still feel to this day, one of the top keynotes in the last 3 years. And she did nothing. She had her camera on, she had her mic, she had some beautiful lighting, and she didn't ever once share her screen. She never once ran a poll. She never used any of these technical engagement tools. And it was the best keynote that I've seen in the last 3 years. People were captivated. And we went and tore apart this keynote. And now I teach a class. Like, I was intimidated for a year going, gosh, can I teach a class without all these tech and tools and things that I'm used to? And now I find we found 8 things she was doing better than anybody else as a presenter.
What
as a
are they?
speaker.
I'm curious.
Oh, you're going to take the rest of the class, but I'll give you 3 easy ones. All right. The first one is that she displayed vulnerability from the beginning. The second one was that she really works on her own authenticity, and she brought it to this meeting. And the last one is a skill that I tell every speaker to work on, and that's storytelling. And her ability to do storytelling is that she now knows too. She can actually give this presentation blind because she knows when people are going to be laughing, when they're going to be crying, whenever they're going to have emotions around this. And she still tells it in a way that really captivated an audience. And I think that skill of storytelling is the other side. You can give hard data, you can give charts, and then if you match it with a story of how that data is affecting somebody or doing something, I think that's one of the ways that you can change your modalities as a speaker so that people will retain, right? Some people will retain the data and some people will retain the story in saying this is how change is made. And so I think there's still worlds away that we can do to really implement the thing that you said, which is be a better speaker, whether you're on virtual, hybrid, or in person. So Pamela, let's see if we can wrap up here. I know that you also teach project management at your Toronto college. If people could only remember one thing from this interview, what would you want that one thing to be, Pamela?
If you want to be a better speaker, a better presenter, then it's about communication, communication, and communication.
Said the communications major. It is a lifelong skill that we all work on, and no matter what the medium is, that's the cool part I think about the technology. Is really said that then the odds of Pamela and I meeting up in face to face, we'd have to be at a conference or something. But here now, we met through other different rounds and have the ability to collaborate with people all around the world. And so I appreciate that, Pamela. Thank you so much. And of course, people can find you at your website, right? PamelaPaterson.com.
100%.
And what's one thing that you're exciting that you're looking forward into 2024, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I'm writing a new book, and
Ooh.
It's about interviewing stakeholders. And it's actually a project I'm working on with the International Institute of Business Analysis. And I'll be speaking about it at their international conference in the new year as well. So I'm very excited about that.
Well, make sure and follow her, Pamela, PamelaPaterson.com. She's also out there on LinkedIn. Pamela, thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, John.
All right. Well, this is John Chen. Well, I'm going to tune out here from Asilomar. We just got a chance to join Pamela Paterson, who says, communicate, communicate, communicate. Think about what you're saying, and more importantly, how you're saying it. And I'll add the last piece too. How is that landing in your audience, right? How is the end person that you're communicating to receiving that? And hopefully that you can find ways to be even more effective, wherever that you are. And so I look forward to seeing you tonight. By the way, you can speak and communicate with our good friend Deborah Eckerling. We'll be leading a session at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for pre-event planning. She's one of our specialists who helps you set goals for our conference, the Engaging Conference, on October 23rd through the 25th, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every single day. And with with that, I just want to say thank you. I'm going to get on a plane and fly home. Thank you, Pamela, for joining us. And I look forward to seeing all of you at the Engaging Conference. We'll see you next time. This is John Chen, the author of the Amazon #1 hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings. I personally want to say thank you for listening to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. It is my passion to help you eliminate bad virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so that you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast with all of the latest ideas. Hey, I want to meet you. If you want to talk about a virtual meeting challenge, or if you want to be the next guest on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, just go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet. That's engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, MEET, and find your best time to meet up. Thank you, and I look forward to engaging with you online.